Welcome to part 2 of our online business support programme. We're now going to focus on the financial elements of either starting a new business or funding a growth project, and we're also going to look at the business model. So it takes great confidence to leave a secure environment that supports your lifestyle needs. Be that security in the form of a monthly paycheck or a profitable and financially secure business to explore new ideas where the outcome is really not guaranteed. And if your new business idea or growth strategy requires funds in the form of either using your savings or the cash reserves in your business, or in fact taking out a loan, it really is a big decision. Obviously, the scale intensified as the investment needs rise to a greater percentage of your assets. But, again, entrepreneurs have families to support, reputations they care about, so the stakes are very high. So the opportunity to test the viability of any new business model with experienced entrepreneurs before you take that plunge could be invaluable. And gaining their perspective, perhaps from someone who's been in your shoes and achieved, will give you the confidence and the clarity on if and how to proceed, and will perhaps also support you to build that business model and a financial route map that details what success might look for you within this venture. But the first priority is to get a handle on how much money you'll need to set it up, how the cash will be used, how the cash will flow through your new business model and at what rate, and to secure the venture as quickly as possible by getting it to a break-even, meaning when the money coming into the business is more or less equal to the money going out. After that, you can then start building back up those cash reserves to weather any future storms that might hit you or to enable future growth plans. In the early stages, the chances are increased of this happening by good cost discipline, business planning, cash management and forecasting. So just taking those 4 points and adding a bit more detail, good cost discipline really means not spending on anything that's not business critical. Careful business planning is really understanding where you want to be and a strategy that gets you there. Setting systems in place for good cash management should just not be neglected. This is a critical area and often a reason why high potential business ventures fail. And finally, good realistic forecasting. It does need to be as realistic as possible. Most early stage business plans underestimate costs and overestimate sales, so produce an over optimistic output from their business plan. It's also worth running a doomsday scenario at this stage to fully assess the risks that are within your business model and develop plans to mitigate against them if at all possible.
One of the first things I actually do, and one of the companies that I started 3 years ago now, is recommend they open a savings account. And I know that sounds a bit of a joke, but most businesses that I have seen in the last 15 years have failed because of the government demands. And especially nowadays, PAYE, VAT and corporation tax are big numbers by comparison. Even if you're running a small kind of private business and there's just two of you, 20% of the cash that comes in is actually the government's cash. So I always work now on the basis of advising people. You have a trading account and you have a number 2 account, savings account.
Yeah.
And at the end of every month, you pay your bills and you put your 20% away. So it's there for the quarter end. You get through your first year, you get your corporation tax bill, and you've saved whatever it is a month towards that bill. It sometimes can restrict the growth of your business, but it's a much safer way of doing it, because too many people, for instance, spend the corporation tax in the hope that next year, because it's not due until whenever, they'll have made more money and pay it out of this year. But you're always a year behind with paying everybody on that basis.
Yeah.
And it's 9 times out of 10, when I get to a business that's got into financial trouble, it's because they've not managed the cash properly.
find someone grey-haired like me and many others at the point you're forming the business to play devil's advocate and run the doomsday scenario.
Okay.
Not to be a downer on your business, but to predict possible situations. You know, there are many ways you can have shareholder agreements, you can decide all sorts of things that you can do, but pre-plan them and don't wait until it becomes emotional. Because it does become emotional, and it ought to become emotional. I was very emotional at that time. I took it very personally that my vision of growing a business wasn't shared by other shareholders within my business. I was very, very lucky that Oxford Innovation did share that, so acquired me, and so I'm doing what I'm passionate about, but under a different brand and a different guise with different shareholders. And that's great, it's worked out, but it doesn't always work out as well as that.
One of the biggest factors that you need to be mindful of is what you pay yourself. If you're starting and running a small business, unfortunately, a lot of people go into working for themselves because they automatically assume they can earn more money than they were as an employee somewhere else. 9 times out of 10, it's the opposite, because you have to start low and you have to start by not taking big lumps of money out of the business.
Risk assessment in my head is just a mathematical set of probabilities. Can you afford to lose? Is the first very key risk assessment. So when I had to put my hand in my own pocket for the very first time and put money into a company, I treated it personally. Not everyone does it this way, but I treated it personally on the basis that I was giving the company that money and I would never get it back. So I consulted with my wife and my family and said, if it never comes back or it never grows, are we fine? That's my personal risk base, never risk the family. And I always admire those people that can take massive personal risks and are successful. I always worry about all of those people that have taken those massive personal risks and didn't become famous like Richard Branson or any of these others. There must be lots of them. I'm not one of those, I can't do that. I take the same view in business once I get into the business, which is measuring risk like measuring investment, which is, you know, if we're not making enough money this year, we're not making enough profit, then park the idea, we'll do it next year. Or go to our investors and say, this is the risk we think is appropriate to take with your money. Are you with us on this? So it's all about selling the idea and communicating it and sharing it. But under my management, Oxford Innovation, I hope, will never do anything that fundamentally damages the underpinning infrastructure of the business and can bring the whole house of cards tumbling down. And that's how I measure risk, and some people would describe that as risk averse, and if that's so be it.
You started to talk about, I guess, referrals and keeping customers happy. So I'm beginning to think there might be some interesting KPIs within your key performance indicators that help drive your business. Yeah, how do you have a set, and what are they for your business?
Yeah. Oh goodness, yes. I work with my husband, and he is truly. He wanted to be an accountant when he was about 12, so he loves spreadsheets. Whereas I much prefer the creative side of the business, and that's not creative accountancy. Before I answer. So yes, he has a spreadsheet for practically everything, and they are humongous spreadsheets. So he will measure anything that moves within the business.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that, we have to have very good reporting, and we have a CIMA qualified person who does our bookkeeping and our management accounts, and she puts together a pack every month from the weekly reports, which basically summarise the KPIs that we work to.
Yeah.
And that's things like obviously sales, recovery on clients, new client.
Recovery on clients, what's that? The amount of work you're doing for them and the return for that.
Yes, absolutely.
So your fee rate.
Yes, absolutely. New clients, oh goodness, there's lists and lists of them. But we couldn't run our business without that. But we couldn't run our business without the good reporting that's there. And behind the reporting is all the building blocks to get there. And what we find with a lot of clients and businesses out there is they'll have all the functionality, they'll have the Sage, bookkeeping packages and everything, but they don't actually get used. The reporting doesn't get used to push their businesses forward. And where we always look for is we try and look for not necessarily the KPI per se, but what is the most impactful thing we could be doing to change the business. So what things make the difference, and therefore we would throw resources at that.
Yes. Okay, so you're really, well, I'm assuming you have a business plan which kind of covers where you want to go.
Yes, we have a
strategy.
5-year business plan, we have a 3-year business plan, we have a 1-year business plan, we have monthly budget reports.
Yes.
I mean, we have the whole works.
Yeah. So those reports keep a handle on where you are against your strategy and your objectives.
Yes.
And if anything starts to go out of line, you might then focus some activity on that.
Absolutely.
So you drive your kind of weekly and monthly activities off the back of the results against those KPIs.
And the other thing we do is we report these on a monthly basis to staff.
Yeah.
So they know exactly how the business is doing and how they're contributing to it, and we have a bonus scheme. So, if we've exceeded above budget, there's a bonus pot at the end of the year. So, everyone's involved in it, and there is transparency with the staff as far as the bonus and how it's calculated and how it's measured and how they're measured as part of their appraisal process.
Yeah. So you use it as well as a management tool to drive performance within your staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really been always ploughing any profit we've made back into the business and always done that, and that's put us in good stead in more difficult times.
We've always run the business with cash in the bank as well, which is just one thing I wasn't going to do was try and go overdrawn.
Yeah.
Not try not to go overdrawn, let's say that.
We do manage our cash flow tightly, and we manage our costs tightly. That's not always easy for businesses because sometimes costs can spiral, but it is about keeping an eye on it and making sure somebody's not spending a lot of money without your knowledge. It is, I think that's quite crucial to a business to manage cash flow, because you can have hundreds of orders, and so in theory your business is doing well, but if you don't manage to actually get paid for the work you've done, that can do for your business, and you wouldn't last terribly long. So we do manage that really, really tightly. But in terms of funding, it has been through the profits we've made going back into the business. So we, as Chris says, we've never been ones for taking loans out. If we can't afford to do it, then we have to think, is that going to take us a bit longer to do it?
Absolutely, and when you've made the money, spend it on yourself. Don't spend it on yourself before you've made it.
Okay.
That would be my advice.
As a newly formed business, listen to what David says about the first stages he went through.
It's a lot less sleep, that's for sure. I think just having to bear in mind all those other aspects of what you're doing. So with working for a company, everything's taken care of and you just get on with it. But it's just ensuring that you are filling in your books every week, that you are making sure that your marketing's done properly, that you're paying the right people at the right time. And probably the other one is just cash flow. Is something that you don't ever have to consider ever as a working for a company, and suddenly that's the be all and end all, is ensuring that the money coming in and the money going out are in the right proportion. So yeah, it's just considering all the other aspects, and I think that's probably the biggest challenge has been, to make sure all those things are balanced, and just finding enough hours in the day to get things done properly.